You've probably heard the argument 1,000 times. The Bible condemns homosexuality. But here's something that might shock you. Jesus never actually said a single word about it. Not one. So why does this idea feel so widespread? And what does the Bible really say? Buckle up, because we're about to uncover what most people never see coming. 1. The elephant in the room. Most Christians assume Jesus spoke against same-sex relationships. But if you open the Gospels and search for it, you'll find nothing. No direct mention. No condemnation. Not even a hint. So where did this idea come from? The answer lies in a few misunderstood verses, none of which Jesus spoke. Think about this. Jesus directly addressed adultery, divorce, greed, and hypocrisy, but same-sex relationships? Silence. That absence speaks volumes. When religious leaders tried to trap him with questions about the law, he consistently pointed back to love and mercy. The one time sexuality came up with the woman caught in adultery, his response was radical grace, not condemnation. If homosexuality was such a critical issue, why would not the Gospels mention it even once? And consider this. Jesus spent time with society's outcasts, tax collectors, prostitutes, Samaritans, people the religious elite rejected. If same-sex relationships were inherently sinful, would not he have addressed them among the sinners he ministered to? Instead, his silence suggests that maybe this was not the priority we've made it today. 2. The verses everyone gets wrong. Let's talk about Leviticus and Romans. These are the go-to passages for anti-gay theology. But here's the problem. Leviticus is part of the Old Testament law, the same law that forbids eating shellfish or wearing mixed fabrics. And Romans? Paul's words are often ripped from their historical context. What if these verses weren't about loving, committed relationships at all? Take Leviticus 18 verse 22, often quoted as a blanket condemnation. But in its original context, it was part of a holiness code distinguishing Israel from neighboring pagan cultures, many of which practiced ritual same-sex acts as part of idol worship. This was not about loving relationships, it was about avoiding practices tied to false gods. Then there's Romans 1, where Paul describes people exchanging natural relations for unnatural ones. But look closer. He's critiquing idolatry, not orientation. The passage describes people who abandoned their natural desires, not those who always had same-sex attraction. Paul's focus was on excess and lust, not committed love. And let's not forget the word arsenokoitai in 1 Corinthians 6 verse 9, often translated as homosexuals. Scholars debate its meaning, but many argue it referred to exploitative relationships, like pederasty or temple prostitution, not consensual partnerships. The Bible's original languages did not even have a word for sexual orientation as we understand it today. 3. The hope you did not expect. Here's the good news. Jesus did speak about love over and over. He broke religious rules to show compassion. He welcomed outcasts. If Jesus never condemned same-sex relationships, maybe the real question is not about sin. It's about why we're so quick to judge what he never did. Jesus' silence on this issue is not a loophole. It's an invitation. An invitation to focus on what he did emphasize. Love your neighbor as yourself. When asked about the greatest commandment, he did not list sexual ethics, he named love. And remember the centurion in Matthew 8? A Roman soldier. Jesus did not interrogate their bond. He healed the boy and praised the centurion's faith. If Jesus was so concerned about policing sexuality, would not this have been the moment? 4. The hidden history of translation. Ever wonder why some Bibles say homosexuals in 1 Corinthians, while older translations do not? That's because the word homosexual was not even in the Bible until 1946. Before that, it referred to exploitative relationships, not orientation. That changes everything, does not it? The 1946 RSV translation was the first to use homosexual in 1 Corinthians 6 verse 9, a decision even some conservative scholars now question. Earlier translations used terms like abusers of themselves with mankind. This shift was not about accuracy, it reflected cultural biases. Even more telling? The word arsenokoitai appears nowhere in ancient Greek literature outside Christian texts. It's a term Paul might have coined, possibly condemning specific abusive practices, not same-sex love as a whole. When we read modern assumptions into ancient words, we risk missing the real message. 5. The real sin Jesus condemned. Jesus did have strong words for religious hypocrisy. He called out those who burdened others with rules while ignoring justice and mercy. So why do we focus on a sin Jesus never mentioned, while ignoring the ones he actually warned about? Jesus reserved his harshest words for religious leaders who tie up heavy burdens. To date, many LGBTQ+ people describe faith communities as places of shame, not grace. Isn't that the opposite of Jesus' mission? And consider his warning about straining out a gnat but swallowing a camel. Are we obsessing over verses we might misunderstand while neglecting justice, mercy, and faithfulness, the weightier matters Jesus explicitly named? 6. The breakthrough moment. What if the Bible's message about sexuality is not about restriction, but about integrity? About love that honors, not exploits? Jesus elevated relationships. Think of his words on marriage and adultery. Maybe the issue is not who you love, but how you love. Jesus redefined relationships around covenant love. Think of his teachings on marriage. The common thread? How we love, not who we love. Exploitation, infidelity, and objectification were his targets, not mutual, committed partnerships. When the rich young ruler asked about eternal life, Jesus did not mention sexuality. He said, "Sell what you own and give to the poor." Our modern debates often ignore Jesus' actual priorities. 7. The modern church's blind spot. Churches today are deeply divided on this issue. But here's what they're missing. The early church had far bigger debates, like whether Gentiles could even be Christians. The solution was not exclusion, it was radical inclusion. Sound familiar? The early church's biggest fight was not about sexuality. It was about whether Gentiles had to follow Jewish law. Peter's conclusion? God made no distinction between us and them. That same inclusive spirit could heal today's divisions. Paul's vision of the church was a body where Jew or Greek, slave or free were united. If the gospel broke those barriers, why could not it transcend modern categories of orientation? 8. The surprising truth about Paul. Paul's letters are complex, but one thing is clear. He valued love above all. In Galatians, he says the entire law is summed up in love your neighbor. If Paul prioritized love over legalism, shouldn't we? Paul's letters must be read in full context. In 1 Corinthians 13, he elevates love above all else, even prophecy and knowledge. In Romans 14, he warns against judging others over disputable matters. If Paul prioritized unity over legalism, why do we fracture over this? And let's not forget his close bond with Timothy, a relationship some scholars suggest had homoerotic undertones. Whether or not that's true, Paul's emphasis was always on Christ-centered love. 9. The future of faith and sexuality. Younger generations are leaving churches over this issue. But what if the next great revival is not about stricter rules, but wider grace? Imagine a faith where everyone truly belongs. A 2021 Pew study found that most young Christians support same-sex marriage. Yet many churches dig in harder, driving away a generation hungry for authenticity. What if the next revival is not about purity culture, but radical belonging? Jesus said, "By this everyone will know you are my disciples, if you love one another." Not, if you agree on sexuality. Love was to be the hallmark, not doctrinal uniformity. 10. The invitation you did not see coming. This is not about rewriting the Bible, it's about reading it honestly. If Jesus never condemned homosexuality, maybe it's time to ask, who are we to? This conversation is not going away. But here's the choice. We can cling to assumptions, or we can seek truth with humility. If you're wrestling with this, you're not alone. Let's keep talking. Drop your thoughts below. And if this video challenged you, share it. Because the world does not need more judgment, it needs more love.